It was a Thursday afternoon when my world crumbled. The sun filtered through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the breakfast table we had shared countless times. I remember standing there, sipping my coffee, the aroma wrapping around me like a familiar embrace. It was an ordinary moment, one that felt like any other day. Little did I know, it was about to become the most significant turning point of my life. I had just returned from work, exhausted but content. As I placed my briefcase on the counter, I noticed my wife, Sarah, sitting on the couch engrossed in her phone. She looked up, her eyes bright with an enthusiasm I hadn't seen in a while. I smiled, feeling a wave of affection for her. We had been married for 6 years, and while life had its ups and downs, I thought we were doing well. Love was still there, or so I believed. But then, as I walked past her, I caught a glimpse of her screen. A message popped up, and in that fleeting moment my heart sank. It was from a name I didn't recognize, an unfamiliar contact that sent a shiver down my spine. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I felt a pull to see more, to understand what was happening behind that innocent facade. "Who's texting you?" I asked, trying to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me. It trembled with an undercurrent of dread. She looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before it morphed into something unreadable. "Just a friend," she replied, her tone dismissive. A friend. The words echoed in my mind, but I could feel something deeper lurking beneath the surface. I could sense that this was more than just a casual acquaintance. A gnawing fear began to unravel in my chest. I turned away, trying to shake off the feeling, but it clung to me like a shadow. That night when she went to bed, I found myself unable to sleep. My mind raced, replaying the day's events like a broken record. I tossed and turned, the weight of suspicion pressing down on me, until I finally gave in to the urge to investigate. I picked up her phone from the kitchen counter, the screen still lit up from earlier. With a mixture of fear and determination, I unlocked it. My heart pounded as I scrolled through her messages. Each word felt like a knife slicing deeper into my heart. There it was, a string of messages filled with laughter, flirtation, and intimacy that was meant for someone else. I felt sick to my stomach. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, crashing over everything I thought I knew. The name I had seen earlier belonged to a man named Mark. Familiarity washed over me as I read the messages, the way they spoke to each other, the inside jokes, the plans to meet up. It was a world I was not a part of, a reality I had been blissfully unaware of until that moment. My hands trembled as I dropped the phone, the sound of it hitting the table echoing like a gunshot in the silence of the night. I stumbled back, my breath quickening. The memories of our life together flooded my mind. The laughter at family gatherings, the quiet moments spent on the couch, the promises we made to each other. I had believed in us, in our love, and now it felt like a cruel joke. How could she do this to me? How could she betray the trust we had built over the years? The pain was visceral, a raw wound that throbbed with every heartbeat. I felt a storm brewing inside of me, anger, sadness, confusion, all swirling together into a tempest that threatened to consume me. I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but I held back. I needed to gather my thoughts, to understand what had just happened before I acted on impulse. As the hours passed, I sat in the dark, grappling with the reality of my situation. I was shattered, standing on the precipice of a decision that would change everything. The woman I thought I knew, the love of my life, had taken everything for granted. I had always believed she would be there, always within reach, until the moment I discovered I was wrong. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the chaos inside. This was just the beginning. I needed to think, to plan. I wouldn't let her get away with this. I had to confront the truth and find a way to reclaim my life. But first, I had to gather the pieces of my broken heart. The sun rose the next morning, casting a harsh light on my reality. I felt like I was waking from a nightmare, only to find that it was my life that had become the stuff of horror. I had spent the night tossing and turning, wrestling with the images of Sarah and Mark together. I could see them laughing, sharing glances that were meant for me. It was maddening. I had to confront the truth about our marriage, about everything I had been blind to. As I sat at the kitchen table, the remnants of breakfast untouched before me, I couldn't help but reflect on the moments that had led us to this point. I recalled the early days of our relationship, The excitement, the passion, the feeling that we were invincible. We had met in college, both idealistic and hopeful about the future. I remember our late-night talks, filled with dreams and laughter, the way we would plan our lives together as if nothing could ever come between us. But somewhere along the line, things began to change. Life happened. The initial thrill of our romance faded into the mundane routine of daily life. I threw myself into my job, chasing promotions and accolades, while Sarah focused on her career as well. We were both busy, often too exhausted to connect at the end of the day. I had thought we were building a life together, but in hindsight, I realized we were simply coexisting. There were signs, of course, little things I had chosen to overlook. The late nights at work that turned into excuses to go out with friends, the sudden interest in her appearance, the new clothes and makeup she had started to wear. I had attributed it all to the pressures of life and the need for a little self-care. I had been so wrapped up in my own world that I hadn't noticed the distance growing between us. I felt a wave of anger rise within me. How could she have let it come to this? How could she betray the vows we had taken, the promises we had made? It was as if I had been living in a fog, and now the truth was like a cold slap to my face. I had trusted her completely, and she had shattered that trust without a second thought. As the day dragged on, I found myself replaying conversations we had shared over the years, dissecting every word, every laugh. I thought about the times I had suggested we go out for a date night, only to be met with excuses. I had believed she was just busy or stressed. Now I wondered if she had been busy hiding her infidelity. The thought gnawed at me, twisting the knife deeper into my heart. I could see the moments clearly now, the times she had seemed distant, lost in thought while I talked about my day. The way her smile had faded, replaced by an air of distraction. It was all so painfully obvious in retrospect, like a movie playing in slow motion. I had been so eager to ignore the signs, to believe everything was fine, that I had allowed my heart to be blindsided. My mind drifted to the day we had picked out our wedding rings, the way we had gazed into each other's eyes, promising to love each other through thick and thin. I had believed those words, had thought they were carved in stone. But now, it felt like they were nothing but empty promises. I was left holding the pieces of a shattered dream, and I didn't know how to put them back together. I stood up from the table feeling restless. I needed to do something, anything, to channel this pain into action. I grabbed my jacket and stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face like a splash of cold water. I walked aimlessly, my mind racing. I needed clarity, a way to process everything that had happened. As I walked through the neighborhood, I noticed the little things, the laughter of children playing in the park, couples walking hand in hand, the mundane happiness of life that felt so foreign to me now. I felt like an outsider, watching from a distance as everyone else continued with their lives, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within me. I found a bench and sat down, letting the weight of my thoughts settle around me. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, ready to erupt. But with it, I also felt a sense of resolve beginning to form. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. I needed to confront Sarah to get answers. I needed to know why she had done this and if there was any way to salvage what we had. But as I sat there, I also knew that I had to prepare myself for the worst. I had to confront the possibility that our marriage might be irreparably broken. The thought was terrifying, yet I felt a strange sense of empowerment in acknowledging it. I had been living in her shadow, taking her love for granted, but I was ready to stand up for myself now. With a deep breath, I stood up from the bench and began to walk home. I had a plan forming in my mind, a way to confront Sarah and demand the truth. I would not let her betrayal define me. I would seek answers, and no matter what I found, I would reclaim my life. I had to know how deep the betrayal ran, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The air felt thick with tension as I walked through the front door of our home. I could hear Sarah moving around in the kitchen, the sound of pots and pans clattering together. It was an ordinary sound, one that had once brought me comfort, but now it filled me with dread. My heart raced as I approached her, the weight of my revelation pressing down on me like a heavy shroud. "Sarah," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor beneath it. She turned to face me, and for a moment I was struck by how beautiful she looked, even in her faded t-shirt and sweatpants. But that beauty felt like a cruel reminder of the betrayal that lay beneath the surface. "Hey, you're home early," she said, her voice bright, but there was a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "Everything okay?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted, the smile fading as she sensed the gravity of my tone. "What about?" I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. "I know about Mark." The name hung in the air like a dark cloud, and I watched as her face paled. For a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights, frozen in disbelief. Then, as the realization set in, her eyes narrowed and I could see the walls going up around her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice defensive almost. Accusatory. "I saw your messages," I replied, my voice rising with each word. "I saw how you two talk, how you plan to meet. How long has this been going on, Sarah?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out at first. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she struggled to formulate a lie or a defense. I felt a surge of anger, a need for her to be honest with me. "Just tell me the truth," I shouted, the frustration spilling over. "I deserve that much." Crossed her arms, her posture shifting to one of defiance. "You don't understand what you're talking about. It's not what you think." "Not what I think," I echoed incredulously. "I've seen the messages, the way you flirt with him, the plans you've made. How can you sit there and say it's not what I think?" Tears welled in her eyes, but they were not tears of remorse. They were anger and frustration, and I could see the walls she had built around herself. "You don't know how hard things have been for us. You've been so wrapped up in your work that you didn't even notice me anymore." I felt a sharp pain at her words, a mix of guilt and anger. "So you thought cheating was the answer. You thought ignoring our problems and running to someone else would fix things." "It wasn't like that," she shot back, her voice rising. "I didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. You've been so distant and I felt alone. I needed someone to talk to, someone who would listen." Her justification hit me like a slap. "So you found comfort in another man. You betrayed me, Sarah. You betrayed us." "I never meant to hurt you," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I thought I could handle it. I was trying to find myself again. By sleeping with someone else." I spat, my anger boiling over. "That's how you find yourself. By destroying everything we built together." She opened her mouth to argue, but I could see the cracks in her facade. For the first time, I felt a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. A hint that maybe, just maybe, she understood the gravity of what she had done. "This isn't just about you, Sarah. It's about us. It's about the life we promised to build together," I said, my voice lowering as I tried to appeal to whatever was left of her conscience. "I thought we were in this together. I thought we loved each other." "I do love you," she exclaimed, her voice rising again, desperation etched on her face. "But I felt so lost. I didn't know how to reach you." "Lost?" I scoffed, my heart aching. "You chose to run away instead of talking to me. You chose to betray me instead of fighting for us." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the tears streaming down her cheeks, but I felt no sympathy. My heart was hardening, the pain transforming into a resolve I hadn't anticipated. I couldn't let her manipulate this situation any longer. "Do you even understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice steady. "You've shattered my trust. You've made me question everything I thought we had. How can I ever look at you the same way again?" "I'll do anything to fix this," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll end it with him. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow. "You think it's that easy? You think I can just forget what you've done? This isn't something you can fix with a few words or promises." The reality of our situation hit me hard. I had loved this woman with everything I had, but now I felt like a stranger in my own home. The life we had built together felt like a fragile glass that had shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't know if we could ever put it back together. "I need time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't do this right now. I need to think." With that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, my heart heavy with betrayal and sorrow. I had confronted her, but I knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, and I was filled with a mix of anger and sadness that threatened to consume me. As I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I felt a sense of emptiness wash over me. I had fought for the truth, but now I was left with more questions than answers. I needed to find a way to reclaim my life, but first, I had to navigate the emotional minefield that lay ahead. The days that followed the confrontation felt like an endless spiral into despair. I had hoped that confronting Sarah would bring some clarity, some sense of resolution. Instead, it had left me feeling more lost than ever. I went through the motions of daily life, eating, sleeping, going to work, but it all felt like a hollow shell of my former self. The vibrant colors of my existence had dulled to shades of gray. I found myself isolating more and more. Friends would call or text, wanting to check in or make plans, but I brushed them off with vague excuses. I didn't want to explain, didn't want to share the turmoil that had become my constant companion. The thought of opening up about the betrayal felt insurmountable. I was trapped in my own mind, a prisoner of my emotions, and I didn't know how to escape. Even at work, where I had always found a sense of purpose, I felt like a ghost. My colleagues noticed my distraction, the way I stared blankly at my computer screen, but I waved off their concerns. Just tired, I would say, forcing a smile that never reached my eyes. Inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was broken. I spent my evenings at home, the silence of the house pressing down on me like a heavy weight. Sarah would often try to talk to me, to reach out, but I couldn't bear to engage. Each word she spoke felt like a reminder of the betrayal, a reminder of the love I had lost. I would retreat to the bedroom, shutting the door behind me, while she hovered in the living room, her presence a painful reminder of what we had once shared. One night, as I sat on the edge of the bed, I found myself staring at our wedding photo on the nightstand. We looked so happy, so in love. I could almost hear the laughter from that day, the promises we had made to each other. But now that image felt tainted. I felt anger rising within me, a burning rage that threatened to consume me whole. How could she have done this? How could she have betrayed everything we had built? I picked up the photo and tossed it across the room, watching as it shattered against the wall. The sound echoed in the silence, a cruel reminder of the brokenness that now defined my life. I felt a sense of release, a momentary distraction from the pain, but it was fleeting. The emptiness returned, a gaping void that swallowed me whole. In the days that followed, I sought solace in distractions. I started going to the gym more often, pushing my body to its limits in an attempt to drown out the emotional pain. I would lift weights until my muscles screamed for mercy, running until my lungs burned, but even the physical exertion couldn't rid me of the turmoil inside. The anger and sadness were ever present, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for a moment of weakness to resurface. I began to write again, something I hadn't done in years. I poured my feelings onto the page, letting the words flow freely as I vented my frustrations and heartbreak. It became my outlet, a way to process the chaos in my mind. I wrote about betrayal, about loss, about love that had turned sour. The characters I created mirrored my own struggles, their pain reflecting my own. It was cathartic, but it also served as a constant reminder of my shattered reality. Yet as I wrote, I found myself grappling with a new emotion, fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what lay ahead. I had always believed in the strength of our bond, but now I was faced with the possibility of its complete dissolution. What would my life look like without Sarah? What would it mean to start over? The thought terrified me. One evening I sat on the couch, surrounded by the remnants of my life, scattered papers, empty takeout containers, and the haunting silence that filled the room. I picked up my phone, staring at it as if it held the answers I sought. I wanted to reach out to someone to share my pain, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt ashamed, embarrassed that I had let my marriage fall apart. I had always prided myself on being strong, on being the one who could handle anything life threw at me, but now I felt weak and vulnerable. As I sat in the dim light of the living room, I heard a soft knock on the door. It was Sarah. I could feel her presence even before she spoke, her voice hesitant and careful. "Can we talk?" she asked, but I remained silent, my heart racing. She opened the door slowly, stepping inside as if entering a minefield. "I know you're hurting," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for some sign of understanding. I just want to explain. I wanted to scream to tell her that I didn't want to hear her explanations, that I didn't want to hear her excuses, but the words caught in my throat. I was tired of the fighting, tired of the pain. Instead, I turned away, my back to her, as if physically distancing myself could shield me from the hurt. "Please," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this." I felt a flicker of anger spark within. "Me fix this?" I repeated, turning to face her. "How do you fix something that's been shattered? How do you put the pieces back together when they're scattered all over the floor?" "I don't know," she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But I want to try. I love you and I'm so sorry for what I did. I was lost and I thought I could find my way back. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her words hung in the air and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. But sincerity wasn't enough to erase the pain, to mend the wounds that had been inflicted. I felt trapped in a web of confusion, torn between the love I still felt for her and the betrayal that had shattered my trust. "I can't keep doing this," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not." As I spoke those words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was finally acknowledging the truth, the reality of our situation. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't continue living in this limbo. I needed space, time to process everything that had happened. With a heavy heart, I stepped back, creating distance between us. "I need to think," I said, my voice firm. "I need to figure out what I want." I walked away, leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. I felt a mix of sadness and relief, knowing that I had taken a step toward reclaiming my life. But the road ahead was uncertain, and I was filled with a sense of isolation that felt all-consuming. As I closed the door behind me, I realized I needed to find my own way through this darkness. I had to face the pain, confront the betrayal, and ultimately decide what I wanted for my future. It was a journey I would have to take alone, but I was determined to emerge on the other side, no matter how difficult it might be. The days turned into weeks, and the weight of my situation settled heavily on my shoulders. I spent countless hours alone, grappling with my thoughts and feelings in the solitude of my home. I had taken time away from Sarah, and while it felt necessary, it also felt isolating. I was a man caught in the throes of heartbreak, trying to navigate a path I had never anticipated. I started seeing a therapist, an idea I had resisted for too long. Sitting in her office, I felt an odd mix of vulnerability and relief. I poured out my heart, recounting the details of my relationship with Sarah, the betrayal, and the emotional turmoil that followed. My therapist listened patiently, guiding me through the tangled web of my emotions. "Betrayal is one of the hardest things to process," she said one day, her voice calm and reassuring. "You're not just grieving the loss of trust, you're grieving the loss of the life you thought you had." Her words resonated deeply with me. I had built a life around the belief that Sarah and I were partners, allies in the journey of life. Now, that foundation felt like quicksand, and I was struggling to find solid ground. I realized that acceptance was not about forgetting what had happened, but about acknowledging the pain and learning to move forward. In those therapy sessions, I began to understand that my feelings were valid. Anger, sadness, confusion, they were all part of the healing process. I started to embrace the idea that it was okay to feel lost. It was okay to take the time I needed to figure things out. I didn't have to rush into decisions or feel pressured to reconcile immediately. I began to write again, not just as an outlet for my pain, but as a way to explore my feelings. I filled pages with thoughts about love, trust, and the complexities of human relationships. The act of writing became therapeutic, allowing me to process everything that had happened. I created characters who faced similar betrayals, who struggled with their own demons, and through their stories, I found pieces of my own truth. One night, as I sat at my desk, I reflected on the moments I had shared with Sarah. I thought about the laughter, the adventures, and the love we had once felt. But I also thought about the cracks that had formed over time, the moments I had overlooked. I began to see our relationship not just in black and white, but in shades of gray. It was a complex tapestry woven with both joy and pain. I started to embrace the idea of self-discovery. I took up hobbies I had long neglected, painting, hiking, and even cooking. I found solace in nature, spending weekends exploring trails and breathing in the fresh air. Each step I took felt like a step toward reclaiming my identity, a way to reconnect with who I was outside of my marriage. But the most challenging part was coming to terms with the future. I had to confront the possibility that my life might look vastly different without Sarah. The thought of separation felt daunting, yet I also knew that staying in a relationship built on betrayal would only lead to further heartache. I needed to choose what was best for my own well-being, even if it meant letting go of the person I once loved so deeply. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to find Sarah sitting on the couch, her expression a mixture of hope and apprehension. I felt a pang in my chest at the sight of her. I had spent weeks trying to heal, trying to understand my feelings, and now I was faced with the reality of her presence once more. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart racing. I sat down across from her, the space between us filled with unspoken words. I had spent so much time reflecting that I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was ready to confront the reality of our situation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," I began, my voice steady. "I've realized that I can't keep living in this limbo. I need to know if we can move forward or if it's time for us to part ways." Tears filled her eyes as she listened, and I could see the pain etched on her face. "I want to make this work," she said earnestly. "I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve." "Sarah, it's not just about wanting to fix things," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. "It's about trust. You broke that trust, and it's going to take time to rebuild it if that's even possible." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I have to earn that trust back. I'll go to counseling, I'll do everything I can. I just want a chance to show you that I can change." I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of our situation. "I need time," I said, my heart heavy. "I need to figure out what I truly want. I can't promise anything right now." "I'll wait," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll do whatever it takes to show you I'm worth it." As I looked into her eyes, I felt a mix of sadness and resolve. I knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but I also knew that I was no longer the man who would accept betrayal without question. I had to find my own path, whether it led back to her or away. In that moment, I felt a sense of acceptance wash over me. I was ready to face whatever came next, even if it meant letting go of the life I had once envisioned. I would reclaim my identity, my happiness, and my future. It was a daunting journey, but I was determined to take it one step at a time. The weeks turned into months, and the journey of healing continued for both Sarah and me. I found myself in a delicate dance between hope and skepticism. Each day brought new challenges, new opportunities for growth, and a chance to redefine what our relationship could be. I was learning to navigate the complexities of love, trust, and forgiveness, but I was also learning to embrace my own strength and independence. Therapy sessions became a regular part of my routine, not just for me but for Sarah as well. We attended couples counseling together, where we began to unpack the layers of our relationship, the good, the bad, and the painful. It was difficult work, but it was necessary. We had to confront the underlying issues that had contributed to her infidelity and my own emotional neglect. I watched as Sarah opened up, revealing her vulnerabilities and fears. It was a side of her I had never seen before, and while it was painful to witness the rawness of her emotions, it also gave me a glimmer of hope. She was willing to fight for us, to dig deep and confront the demons that had haunted our marriage. In turn, I began to share my own struggles, my feelings of betrayal, and the anger that had festered within me. One evening after an especially intense session, we sat in silence in our living room, the weight of our conversation hanging heavy in the air. I could see the exhaustion etched on her face, but there was also determination. "I know I hurt you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But I want to be better. I want to show you that I can be the partner you need." I felt a mixture of emotions, sadness for the pain we had endured, but also a flicker of hope. "I want that too," I replied, my voice steady. "But it's going to take time. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. I understand, she said, her eyes searching mine for affirmation. I'm willing to put in the work. I just need you to be patient with me. As we continued to navigate this path together, I found myself rediscovering the parts of Sarah that I had fallen in love with. We began to create new memories, exploring places we had never been, trying new activities and reigniting the spark that had once drawn us together. It was not easy, and there were moments of doubt and frustration, but I began to see glimmers of the woman I had married. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The colors in the sky were vibrant, a stark contrast to the darkness that had shrouded our lives for so long. I took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh air, and turned to Sarah. I never thought we would make it to this point, I admitted. I thought we were done. Me too, she said, her voice soft. But I'm grateful we're still here, still trying. I don't want to take this for granted again. In that moment, I realized that while our journey was far from over, we were both committed to making it work. I had learned to set boundaries and communicate my needs, and she had learned to be open and honest about her feelings. It was an ongoing process of growth and understanding, but I felt a renewed sense of hope. As time passed, I began to see the possibility of a future together. Trust was being rebuilt, slowly but surely, and I started to believe that we could emerge from this stronger than before. I had learned the importance of self-love and self-care, and I was no longer the man who would accept betrayal without question. I had reclaimed my identity, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. But I also understood that moving forward meant acknowledging the past. I had to be honest with myself about the scars that would remain, the memories that might still sting. I had to accept that while we could heal, we would never return to the naive bliss of our early days. Our relationship had changed, and I was learning to embrace that change. One night, as we lay in bed together, I turned to Sarah, feeling a sense of vulnerability wash over me. "Do you think we can really make this work?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned to face me, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I believe we can. It won't be easy, but I'm committed to doing whatever it takes. I love you, and I don't want to lose you again." Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, and I felt a sense of comfort in knowing that we were in this together. Love was a journey, not a destination, and I was learning to embrace the complexities of our relationship, both the joy and the pain. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I had faced the darkness, confronted the betrayal, and emerged on the other side. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to walk it hand in hand with Sarah. Together, we would navigate the complexities of love and trust, forging a new path built on honesty, vulnerability, and resilience. I had learned that love was not just about the highs, but also about weathering the storms together. We were both flawed, both human, and we would continue to stumble along the way. But as long as we were willing to fight for each other, to communicate openly and honestly, I believed we could create a love that was stronger than the betrayal that had once threatened to tear us apart. And with that realization, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. We were still here, still trying, and that was enough for now. Together, we would heal, and together, we would find our way back to each other. The journey was just beginning, but I was ready to embrace it.